Hello, everybody. Welcome to Good Morning, giving our Switch 2 predictions today.
Talking about Zelda.
Hello.
Yeah, I'll
Hello.
jump in a little
Big
bit, but I've
spoilers.
got some weirder nonsense to talk about.
Okay.
Hi. Hi, I was
Oh.
muted on Discord. I wasn't able to cut you guys off. It's a good
Well.
thing you didn't say anything.
Uh-oh. And the last 3 digits of my social security number. Oh, wait. Oh, are we live? Oh.
It's so funny you asked me that because my credit card number also has.
Welcome to another episode of Good Morning Source Gaming. I'm your host, Nintendrex. Joining me today from the Source Gaming side is Colin, Slink,
Yippee!
Hi.
Slink, and
Hi.
we have a special guest with us for this one. We have my good friend Tucker from Backlog Banter.
Yeah. I've appeared a couple times on the Nintendex channel streaming some NSO games, which has been awesome. And Josh, I noticed we haven't done that in a while. Do we have a beef going on that I don't know about? Like, it seems like you're not inviting me anymore.
There's just been a difference in regions and locations.
Damn, busting out the first name.
Oh, whoops! Yeah, we go way back. You know, I can call him Josh.
Yeah, first name basis here.
And you can call me Tucker, by the way.
Yes.
All right.
So, yeah, we actually do need to do another one of them. I've got a whole lot of backlog of my own to get through on that channel. I promised I would do a video about NES games for NSO when they did the next NES drop, and of course they did it while I was in Japan and unable to make videos. So I'm like 2 months behind on my promise for that. Whoops. I'll get to it, I promise. Again, second promise. Anyway, for this episode, we brought Tucker on because we want to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2. I'm sure a lot of you know, there's been a lot of chatter about it in September, possible leaks, possible 3D prints, all this nonsense.
Yeah. In fact, I have acquired a exclusive image of the Nintendo Switch 2 that I'm gonna put on screen right now.
Uh-oh. Oh, God.
Damn.
Here it is.
Don't let the Nintendo ninjas find out.
Oh, look at that.
Whoa, that's a lot of twos.
Why has
Yeah,
it got
they're all-
Why has it got the
all-
Wii U sticks?
Don't
No,
worry
you're
about
right.
it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like a Joy-Con mixed with the Wii U. That's crazy.
Yep.
You should put
Every
the
button is a B button from the
you should put the
Wiimote.
E3 Wii U pad sticks on it, the circle pads.
Ooh. Well, that's a deep cut.
From the 3DS. When they had
I still wonder to this day if those sticks clicked or not. Like, did they make a stick
No
clicking?
way. There's no way.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I have seen the E3 Wii U pad in person, like at conventions, and it's like slimmer than the actual Wii U gamepad. It's really bizarre. Let me see if I can upload an image of it to chat real quick. But y'all keep yapping.
Yeah, you should. Do you think that is going to be at the Nintendo Museum? 'Cause apparently they have the Wii U gamepad prototype where it was like the Wii remotes.
Oh, this
attached
strapped
to-
together thing?
this
Yeah,
strapped together
yeah.
thing.
They might.
They have that at the museum.
I feel like some of the. I mean, I guess we can talk briefly about the museum, but like, it seems like they weren't letting people film the second floor with all the controllers.
Well, that's the Wii U floor. Yeah, it's the entire floor dedicated to Wii U.
They don't want people to acknowledge the Wii U.
That's the
Yeah.
Project Atlantis floor.
You have to sign an NDA when you go up there.
Yeah.
I
It's where
assume
they
they're
show
gonna
off
be.
the-
I assume they're just gonna be constantly switching out, like stuff, like exhibits and whatnot. I don't.
Potentially. I mean, I assume the reason they don't want you to film that floor is because that's like the main floor and they want people to come.
Yeah.
Like most of the footage being recorded is of the experiences and the entrance and stuff like that. Stuff that you can have a look at, but you realistically you want to play. What they don't want is people filming like every exhibit on the second floor so that people don't have to come to the museum itself.
Yo, they got Mario in this?
Yeah.
Yo.
Like, I imagine that's the reason. So even when it's open to the public, they won't be allowing people to film on the second floor.
Right.
That's just going to be the standard. But I'm sure somebody will, because that's always the case. When they went to that Earthbound exhibit when I was in Japan, and they were asking people not to film there, but like people uploaded photos
Yeah, of
of
course.
everything, and I'm pretty sure all that information is now
Somebody
online.
walks in with a secret spy cam strapped to their chest, they'll never know.
Exactly. They just pull out their 3DS and claim it's Street Pass, but they're secretly filming everything.
Slink,
It's a video app.
I have put the Circle Pad Wii U pad in the guest hangout.
Oh yeah, ooh.
But to finish my little introduction, we've had a whole bunch of rumors about it. I was never on the train that it would be revealed in September. I know that was a popular rumor that a lot of people were following, but my thought has always been that October is the earliest we would see the Switch 2.
Couple more days.
Yeah,
I can tell you my exact thought process of when this thing will be announced. Are you ready?
Okay.
This is it. This is the top tier.
That's a
Oh my God,
big photo.
Hard-hitting
That's a
opinions you're looking
big
for.
photo.
It is a big photo.
I'm
Ooh.
glad that's HD. Yeah, that's really high resolution.
But I thought there would be a general September direct after that June one,
Yeah, so did I.
and then there wasn't.
Nope.
And then I was like, I guess they're going to announce this thing eventually. I don't. People were
you know
in.
what?
productive skills.
People were in our server like every single fucking morning in September, being like,
Yeah.
"Is today the day?" And I'm like, "I don't think so."
Yeah.
No.
I was being the no fun allowed police and being like, they could just wait till 2025 to announce it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
They
it
don't
doesn't.
have to be now.
I think it really doesn't like hard matter unless it's like outside of it being just some period of time before the console is revealed. Like obviously
Yeah.
they don't want to like reveal it a month before it comes out. But
Well-
also, yeah, you never know. But
I was thinking about this the other day, though. I mean, they really revealed the Switch in January of 2017, and then they released it 6 weeks later. That's insane.
Well, they
kinda.
revealed it before that.
I know,
with the
but,
teaser
like,
video.
We didn't know anything about the system, just that trailer. We didn't know
You
had,
can have a rooftop party with it, and that was
Yeah,
it.
they had
And
some
Mario was coming to the system.
Yeah, they had some game teases. They had like some kind of formal. We had like I think they had specs out on the machine after that initial
Maybe.
reveal trailer. Obviously, if you're like super technically inclined, that means more to you than like the average gamer. But I think there was like we knew a couple things. I don't think they're just gonna redo the whole Switch 1 hype cycle again.
No,
They
yeah. A lot of
could.
people have been saying like, "Oh, it's just gonna follow the same pattern." I'm like, I don't think that's likely.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
could. But the circumstances are so different now.
Yeah,
Like,
when they revealed the Switch 1, they were currently sitting on a dead home console.
yeah.
So it was better sooner than later. But now, I don't know if they should or shouldn't reveal it before the holiday season.
Mhm.
I'm of the opinion that I don't know if it matters that much. If everything is forward compatible, then like
Yeah.
people
they're
are
still the
still
same
gonna
kind of
buy
games, yeah.
Zelda and Mario Party or whatever. And also
it's
like,
less software sales and more. The Switch is still selling.
I was getting there because
Yeah.
Yep.
150 million units sold. It's statistically likely you probably already own a Switch.
Yes.
It's like
Yeah.
infinite growth. I don't know how, like, I guess they could charge up to the top of being the best-selling video gaming thing ever, but like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it
Well, regardless of like the exact date of when, I suppose we can get into it a bit more later. The reason to do this video now is because if they do follow the Switch's, the Switch One's cycle, October's the time.
Yeah.
Alright?
yeah.
So get this done now, because I think any other information that does come out is either going to be an official reveal or it's going to be like the system has actually leaked and we know everything about it.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think we're going to get a situation like we did with the Wii U to Switch, where there was like two camps. Like one camp that was adamant it was going to be this all-powerful, super console that was on par with the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One and stuff, and then the
Yeah.
camp that was it's a weird hybrid handheld console device that's weaker than those two, and obviously that one won out. I think
Yeah.
everyone's kind of adamant that it's going to be a follow-on from the Switch 2. So it's all about what extra the Switch 1 even is going to be a follow. So
And even then, there was a lot of
what
like.
you-
There was a lot of like even the people that were on the hard like the portable handheld side of things were like, I heard it runs off of AMD's Polaris systems or whatever. Like there was still like a bunch of like hearsay about what even that sort of entailed. But now we have like, I mean, we pretty much know what the chip in the next system has been for the next for the past like 2-3 years now. It's a brand new NVIDIA SoC.
Alright. Well, do we want to start off before we give our sort of... 'cause, for me, personally, the technical stuff is a bit like chew over my head.
Yeah, I'll try to like lay low on the specs, the numbers.
What I was gonna suggest is that like before we give like predictions, and we'll go through each of us and sort of give our predictions on what we expect this system to be, and I want to focus more on features, what its gimmick is going to be, when we think it might release, etc., etc. Before we get into that, do you want to give a little tech deep dive so we're all on the same page in terms of what to expect,
Class is
power-wise,
in
battery
session.
rise, etc., like that?
Well, I think the easiest way to describe the power of this thing. I know everyone loves to compare video game systems power-wise to other video game systems, and it's never that simple. Like everything is relative, but like it's actually kind of hard to explain how powerful the Switch is in relation to other video game consoles, because like it's definitely not on par with like the Xbox One or the PS4, but like to say like, oh, it's closer to a 360 or a PS3 is also kind of dead wrong too. Like it really is like firmly in the middle, and then it's kind of hard to grasp like that sort of like spectrum between like all this different types of hardware. But
Interestingly enough, because the system's been around so long, enough developers have been able to get a lot of power out of the system to where I would say, to me, it feels like it's on par with the Xbox One and the PS4 because we get so many ports from that generation. I don't even really think about the fact that it technically is less powerful, because you've got Remedy and Rockstar and Bethesda porting things down a little bit, but not too much. Like the game still feels the same.
Yeah, and
it's
also
weird
a lot
though.
of that.
Like I don't know what's going up with them, but Sega just finally ported one of the PS3 Yakuza games to the Switch.
Oh yeah.
I feel like Yakuza is a slightly different situation because of like they've been adamant in the past of being like, oh, you know, it doesn't work on Nintendo.
They're really
So
upset
try
about that
different
Wii U HD collection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this is more of a, all right, we'll finally give it another go type deal now that the series is massive.
There's also just like with the Switch, like some engines are just not going to play well with ARM or like RAM limitations or anything. Like there's just like other things that may cause a game to not be ported. I think they didn't name any games specifically, but Panic Button was talking about how in the middle of them doing like the Doom and Wolfenstein ports, they were getting all these requests from companies who just had like engines that were not going to work on the Switch just because they could not be like the actual coding itself just could not be split up the same way that a Doom or a Witcher could. But with Switch 2, what we know so far is we can safely say that its power range is really, 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 really close to the Steam Deck. And
not all people complain about the Steam Deck.
Yeah, but the difference between a Steam Deck and a Switch 2 is going to be that the Switch 2 is going to be significantly more efficient because it is a console with like console-like dev kits and software development. It's not going to be like the deck where it's just brute force playing games through like sheer power and also like Proton compatibility layers. There's going to be a huge software leg up on the Switch 2 that the deck wouldn't have, but it seems like capability wise they're both about on par.
Right. So what other confirmed details do we have from the spec tech thing? I saw people talking about battery life the other day in the Discord.
Yeah, battery life seems to be up in the air because there were some supposed leaked kind of internal images of the thing, and the battery compartment looked a little small, but this device is also like significantly larger than the Switch. So it's one of those things where I don't think that picture's telling the whole story. It could be a prototype thing. It could just be like a weird camera perspective. But I feel like I would just expect it to be on par with the base launch model Switch 1. I don't see why it would be like worse than that for any specific reason, but like better, I would like maybe marginally, but I don't think it would that's just going to be something that has to be seen when the thing comes out, because the battery estimates are always completely fucking random anyway.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about battery life is it's a big talking point before any given anything releases, but to be honest, I think that is one of the quickest conversations to disappear once any piece of hardware comes out. I don't think I've heard anyone talk about the battery life of the Nintendo Switch since June 2017. It's just not an issue. You just get used to it and you suck it up. I mean, the only thing I hear recently is like, oh, the DualSense has a bad battery life, which that is true.
That is true.
But I don't, Switch to Steam Deck, I don't even think about the battery life. It's like, well, it's low on battery, I'll charge it.
Yeah, that was. I mean, like, I remember there was an even bigger discussion before the Switch came out about how you were going to charge the Joy-Cons because the grip doesn't come with the charging port, and then that turned out to not be.
Yeah, the
you just charge the Switch and it charges the Joy-Cons, and you just leave it alone for a few hours, and it's like not an issue.
Yeah. And now they are releasing a Joy-Con charging grip.
Yeah, it's true.
Suddenly.
Yeah.
So, like, I guess that's that's a good segue into the next thing. Well, what do we already know about the Joy-Cons before?
Well, we know the system is bigger, and so because it seems, I guess I'll mention this: the screen is supposed to be an 8-inch 1080p LCD display. A little bummed it's not OLED, but it's Nintendo and they do good screens, so I don't know if I can really complain. It would just be really nice if it was OLED to begin with.
The cynic in me is saying that that's because they want to do an OLED upgrade later, like they did for the Switch.
Well, yeah, that's like the most obvious takeaway, but yeah, it's also it might just be just the type of display that was only available to them at the time. That 8-inch 1080p display is like oddly specific. Like, this thing is going to be larger than an iPad mini.
Okay.
So like.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I feel like, as I said earlier, I don't think any of the leaked photos or anything has really given a good idea of how much larger this thing is going to be. But yeah, it seems like by extension, the Joy-Cons are going to be larger, and they don't rail onto the system anymore. They, which makes sense because that, like, everyone talks about the different types of like failure points of the Switch's hardware. Everyone likes to go for the Joy-Cons drifting and everything, but it's actually those rails. The rails are the weakest part of the Switch hardware, because they're metal and held in by screws into a plastic chassis. So like you can, if you like, if you like threw a Switch over your knee, then the rails are coming off immediately.
Yeah.
And so, and even then, I mean, I remember like, this isn't really as big of an issue now, but I remember like Jeff Gersman got a Switch around launch time, and the latches, the mechanical that's the crazy thing about the Joy-Cons. They have mechanical latches that actually hold the Joy-Cons in place, but they're plastic, so they can wear out too. And then you just get this weird thing where
I just wanted because I got brought up by Ozzy. I think let's not post any potential leaked images or anything like that. I know that the different size one was someone like 3D printing it instead based on the specs. But I don't know. I'm slightly worried about Nintendo ninjas, like coming at us from behind.
I mean, we've got an image right up on the screen right now. If they want to take us down,
do we even need the 3D print on there? Very true. But yeah, so I think we'll avoid post. I was going to mention earlier and just didn't get a chance to bring it up. If you want to see those pictures, I suggest looking them up yourself. Anyway, Colin, sorry, continue.
Yeah, so there was a thing where, because his Joy-Cons wore out, the latches wore out, he clicked the Joy-Cons into the Switch, and then he held the Switch up, and he just watched the tablet, like, slide out by itself from the Joy-Cons.
Oh, no.
And that, it was like that and the kickstand were like the biggest, like, oh god, is this thing gonna be a huge piece of shit? It seems like that ended up not, like, people's like Joy-Con latches wearing out were not a huge deal either. Maybe people put all their Switches in like a case or something. But yeah, it seems like the rails, that rail system, that had to go. So it seems like they're replacing it with magnetics, and then the actual like rail part of the Joy-Con is now it seems like it's just like a big connector that sits flush inside the tablet.
And
so
I'm super curious about how the magnets work. That's my one thing from all of this that's like got me worried. Like I don't know. I feel like magnets would more easily fall off than rails.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that you can electronically control magnets with software.
Okay.
Which is an insane thing to say out loud, but if you've ever used a Microsoft Surface product, then you actually are familiar with what I'm talking about. Because if you've ever gotten like, I had a Surface Book for the longest time, and you could not detach the screen from the keyboard without like holding down a button that would electronically disengage the magnets. And then you could just pull it off willy-nilly. And the prototype seemed to have an also just like a multi-port anyway, so it's possible that it still just like clicks into place via a connector, and then the magnets are just there to hold it all together. Yeah, but until we're going off of like prototype images, so it's possible all the like proper finalized mechanisms aren't even like there. Right. But that's just how I assume it would work. And then Ozzy in chat mentioned the Legion Go, the Lenovo Legion Go, which is one of those Steam Deck clones that also has magnetic kind of Joy-Con type devices. Okay. So we already have sort of a vague image of how they work. And then on top of that, in the place of that small tiny Joy-Con latch button that's on the back of the Joy-Con, now we have a way bigger like angled button, and there seems to be a lot of hoopla about what that's about, because apparently it's like labeled, it's like GL and GR.
Yeah, I feel, to me, those buttons I think are just going to be replacements for the buttons that already attach to the Joy-Con
That's what I
From
think
the rail.
too.
I agree. Yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
because
I think it's just it makes them more pressable because to be honest, those like little nipple buttons on the back of the Joy-Con are kind of annoying. Like I think that's one of the worst design elements of the Joy-Con, like pressing in that button. It's not terrible, but like it always feels a little bit weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
So I
there is
think just
like an actual physical mechanical
exactly.
like mechanism behind them.
Yeah, you can feel the
So
spring.
yeah, so it feels like I think what's going on with these buttons is that they are. There's been talk if they're back paddles or if they're release buttons or even both. I feel like the both might actually be the most interesting concept of the
So what was the
three.
other thing? The release thing, and what was the other option?
Like a back paddle, like a back buttons. And the reasoning for that is because the button is like so large and it's
Yeah.
angled in a way that people have noticed that if you were to hold a Joy-Con sideways, not only are the SL and SR buttons larger now, but now you have basically the equivalent of the N64 Z trigger on the back with that grip button. But I feel like when connected to the Switch, it won't do that because then otherwise, how would the Joy-Cons like detach?
Right, yeah, that's my big issue with that. And then there's another one because the Joy-Cons also have another button, or the right one does, which is the C button.
Yeah,
Is a new, which we'll talk about in a bit. But like I've seen people suggest like certain functions happen by like tapping it or holding it down, and I don't really see them doing that, especially when it's like something that would detach the Joy-Cons from the Switch.
yeah.
Because yeah, if it's like, oh, hold it
I
down
agree.
to detach the Joy-Cons or tap it to do an action in a game.
That's not. Yeah, it doesn't seem like
The fact
you
that
can't.
it's in,
You
like-
can't trust people enough to do that. To be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The fact that it's like in the same exact spot as the Joy-Con latch button makes me think that it's just mirroring that.
Yeah, that's
Because
why
if it
I
was
think
the proper back paddle or something, they would put it lower
Mhm,
where your
yeah.
thingies rest.
Yeah, it's just in a slightly weird place, and the lack of just having another button that would detach it from there makes me think that that's its only function, and it's like been moved there to, I don't know, make it more comfortable to press.
Yeah.
Right. That's the only thing
I think what's gonna happen is you're gonna have to hold down those buttons to disengage the Joy-Cons, which also would make sense why they're large because they need to make them a little more grippy, a little more accessible.
Yeah. There's also the C button, but I don't want to speculate on that just yet. I want to get through all the facts first because
Well,
what
I
I
We're
think the
already
C
doing a
button-
little bit of speculation.
I know. True.
Speaking of product faults, let's talk about those joysticks.
Yeah, well, it seems like now that this stick, like the Joy-Cons themselves, will be bigger, then
Mhm.
also by extension the sticks will be a little bit bigger too. But that's not even really the issue with the Joy-Cons. Isn't even that the sticks themselves are particularly faulty. It's that the mechanism inside basically every joystick on the market right now uses a mechanism that will just wear itself out over time. So the Pro controller is prone to this. The DualSense, the DualShock 4, every Xbox controller since 2013. They did. Nintendo a while ago seemed to patent a type of Hall effect joystick, which you can find in a bunch of third-party controllers, and basically uses like analog sticking, so it cannot mechanically wear out in any way. Like no two pieces in that contraption are touching each other.
Okay, interesting.
But it's such a new tech, and it doesn't seem like there's any one large stick manufacturer is working on that type of analog stick, aside from little like third-party companies like GillyKit and GameSir.
Mhm.
So I don't
Have you
know.
used those yourself? Like, do you notice any different feeling?
They're a little sensitive. They're like maybe a little more sensitive feeling. I actually just got I have the GillyKit Hall effect sticks in my Steam Deck, and then yesterday, 2 days ago, I actually got the GameSir G7 SE, which is a third-party Xbox controller with Hall effect sticks and triggers. And yeah, I mean, it's not like you're gonna feel like a difference immediately, but
Mhm.
yeah. Also, Ozzy pointed out that the patent did not suggest regular Hall effect detection, and that's what I was trying to say. It was Hall effect like. It's not the same. It's like its own proprietary thing. I feel like with Joy-Con drift, it's really like all I'd rather. I mean, like if they do use good Hall effect or just not, mechanically dire sticks or something, that is definitely a plus. But I'd also just hope that these things are as easy to repair as the Joy-Cons, because swapping out the joystick on a Joy-Con is actually like one of the easier things you can do.
Yeah, I mean they repair them for free, so as long as they also keep that up, it's like...
Yeah.
They were gonna charge $40 before the lawsuit happened, so.
Yeah, well, they can't do that anymore because of the lawsuit.
Have you guys had your Joy-Con repaired by Nintendo before?
Yes.
I've had one Joy-Con repaired because the battery died.
I've had a Joy-Con repaired, and I repaired in quotation marks because
They just send you a new one.
They
most of the time.
just sent me a new one because
gotcha.
the joystick the Joy-Con I sent in had a bunch of dents in it. The one I got sent back completely spotless.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's
Interesting.
nice, actually. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just better.
Like, I'm pretty sure they fixed they just fixed mine. It was my original Joy-Cons that I got with my first Switch. And I had Joy-Con drift, and the L button also just wasn't working. Like, you had to really push it down for it to like register. And also, and it had a bit of a rail issue. So this very first Joy-Con was just a problem child. But that's the only one I've like set
That's
off to
actually-
fix. All my others work fine.
The other thing about the rails, I actually totally forgot about this, but it seems like those rails collect dust really easily too, and I don't think anyone expected that to happen, because I see a lot of people talk about like the Joy-Con being connected physically to the Switch, but it's like still disconnecting, and I think it's because that rail just gets like the actual connector is like pocketed, so it's easy for stuff to just kind of like collect in there.
Yeah, that is
For me,
frustrating.
the
I
biggest
have
issue
that
I've had
with some of my Joy-Cons, especially recently when I was playing like MEO, because I was playing it in handheld mode, and it would just suddenly say that one of the Joy-Cons had like come loose.
Yeah, bust out the isopropyl and duster.
For me, the biggest issue I've had is there's a tiny little plastic bit in the rail of the Joy-Con itself, like this little plastic section of the Joy-Con that actually stops it from leaving the Switch, and that part has cracked for me on like 3 or 4 different Joy-Con. So I don't even know what happened. I'm not slamming my Joy-Con in there, but if that gets cracked, you can't do anything about it. They'll just come out. I mean, they'll stay in there, but if you pull on it, it'll come out.
Yeah, that's yeah, I know. I have in a couple of my Joy-Cons, I bought those like third-party metal latches that just like probably wear out the rail faster, but it's more reliable. It seems like this is like a way better system, having magnets, and then it just kind of like clicks into the console, into the tablet itself.
So, what other technical stuff do we know? Is on the
It's got the OLED chassis and kickstand.
Yes.
There
Which
seems
is
to be
way nicer kickstand than the original. Like the original Switch's kickstand is garbage.
Yeah, they
I don't know what they were thinking with that. The OLED's one is great.
I wonder if that original kickstand was supposed to like click into the system a little more sturdily, and then they decided, actually, if it breaks, that sucks, so we should make it like a thing that pops out by design. And then it's like, well, then why would I ever use this?
It's funny looking back on it how bad it is, frankly. I mean, there's actually a lot of elements of just the original Switch design that now that we have the OLED and now that we feel a new system coming, how many things like, well, yeah, these are pretty obvious things you should have fixed, but like, it makes sense. At the end of the day, it's like, you got to make the mistakes, you got to let it go through the through time. I mean, that's
Well,
just how
yeah,
it works.
that's the thing. Not every issue is going to be apparent immediate. Like you're
Mhm.
like with the rails, like that ended up being something that's more of like over time people were like, "Oh, this is not a
Yeah.
good system to attach." But like during testing, during QA, it was probably like flawless. Like because they're like lab testing all of these things.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's why I'd have hoped someone would have noticed that the kickstand was bad in testing.
Yeah.
You can forgive the rail system.
I
although
think the
quality-
kickstand was probably like that by design. It was probably
yeah,
just like
that's
the only thing they could do in such a short
yeah.
time frame.
Mm.
I think they didn't want to put an OLED kickstand or something because they were like, how is this gonna?
Hmm.
Because like Surface tablets had that type of kickstand like
Yeah.
before the Switch came out. So
Mhm.
like the idea was already out there, but I guess they were just on some different shit.
Yeah.
I think to me, a lot of those like more seemingly obvious design flaws, I think to me point more towards they just needed to get the Switch out. Like if
Yeah.
if the Wii U had been able to go for another 2 years, which I mean, in all reality, it should have gone for at least another 2 years. If that had happened, then they would have had 2 more years of R&D or whatever. They wouldn't have started so early. Wouldn't have to.
Mhm.
They've been able to like polish things up internally rather than. It kind of feels like the Switch OLED is what they were like really working towards, but
Yeah.
we got that later down the line.
Yeah, the OLED is definitely like cleans up a lot of issues with the Switch One. Even like the Wi-Fi antenna in it is like way better
Hmm.
than the Switch
Well-
One
Well,
Wi-Fi antenna.
Ozzy brings up in that with the Switch 2 prototype, I guess it's rumors is that it's like the kickstand that'll be on the Switch 2 is different from the one that was in that prototype that was going around. Like they've changed it since then.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Everything that has leaked is from like unfinished like 3D prints and like CAD models. It's like none of it's like finalized. I think most of it is just to get an idea of like how to make a case for the for the Switch 2 as opposed to like these are what the exact button layout and everything of the device is going to be. Because that's kind of how the Switch Lite leaked. Like, there was already, like, some case manufacturers making, like, some TPU cases of the Lite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope that with the final kickstand, one of the things I wanted to see from the kickstand that isn't in the prototype is that, like, I kind of want it to be twistable so that you can set it up so that you can play vertical tabletop mode.
Yes.
Because then you can play like arcade games in the proper format. They've released third-party peripherals to sort of make that easier, but it'd be way nicer to just have the kickstand have like a little turn thing on it, where like if
Yeah.
you open the kickstand fully out and then twist it, you can then have it up right that direction.
There should be a way that they would let you be able to... They could redo that kickstand just so... Not even twisting, but there's just some sort of, like, angle to it so that you could just, like, lay it
Yeah.
vertically
some
like
way to
a
get it
picture frame
vertically.
or something.
Yeah. I just want something like that so that so that you can play arcade games proper, or if they do DS NSO, you can play it like that with
Yeah.
one screen at the bottom, one screen at the top.
Actually, speaking of the chassis of this thing, I just remembered the most interesting aspect of those CAD models and the leaks, which is the Switch 2 USB-C ports.
Oh
There
yeah,
are
yeah.
two.
Yeah.
There's one on the top and there's one on the bottom.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating to me. It makes sense because obviously I don't think they would move the USB-C port from the bottom to the top. Docking the Steam Deck from the top is very ungraceful and looks really dumb and shitty. So having like a standard, I mean, I imagine the Switch dock in this thing, the new dock is just gonna be the same as the previous one, basically. Well, at least like in presentation, not internally. But
Somebody pointed out like the most obvious function of that top USB-C port, which is you can finally charge the system while playing in tabletop mode.
That's exactly that's where
Yeah,
I
of
was
course.
going
Yeah.
for. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, obviously they're not going to move it from the bottom because docking it's just going to be more elegant from the bottom, but you can't charge it in tabletop mode, and even when you're in like handheld mode, like when you're in bed, it's really awkward for it to be coming
Yeah.
from the bottom.
That's
Especially if this thing's gonna be larger. Yeah, especially if this thing's gonna be Steam Deck sized, like it being on the bottom would be rough. So having a port on the top makes sense. It's not the most adding more ports is a very funny solution, but it's a good solution. Like we should encourage manufacturers to put more ports and buttons and shit on our electronics.
Yeah, that was like my immediate takeaway when I saw it in the thing. I was like, oh, so we can finally charge in tabletop mode. I wasn't thinking of any other possible thing, which I've seen people.
But that is the question. What else can it do? That's what I want to know. Because if it's just power, that sucks. But also, I don't think they would do that because, like, wow, that opens up a lot of possibilities. I know.
Yeah.
I know.
No,
Go for it.
Well, I was going to say, like, I know that there's, like, potential things that people could do, and I'm sure we'll see third-party manufacturers find things that they can plug into the USB-C at the top to allow for more stuff. I don't necessarily... I feel like that's... The USB-C is more... Like, that allowing for that is more of an additional benefit of having it there and not, like, the intention of it being there, almost.
Oh my god.
Like, I think
Return.
Occam's razor is just to have it be a way to charge on the top, and then if they do come up with an idea,
I think it
then
will do more, and my reasoning being is because when it is in docked mode, you could just use that as another USB port. Like you can just plug your controller in, and then there you go.
What if we get a return of the Game Boy magnifying glass?
Well, hang on. Because
He's
now
got an idea.
because like, okay, so it's pretty safe to say that then, like, okay, yeah, this thing probably will do power, and then it will probably also do data, because it would make sense if you could just plug a wired controller into it. Like, why would they not allow you to do that?
Yeah.
But then if it's allowing data, then that starts opening up the doors of what else that port could do, because let's go back a little bit. There was a USB 3 port on the Switch 1 dock that never got used. I think they wanted to use it for external hard drive support, but it turning on that port legitimately causes the rest of the dock to not work. I don't know how the fuck that happened, but that's like a real thing. So they've never enabled the USB 3 port on the Switch dock, which is why it's an Ethernet port on the OLED, and it seems like on the Switch 2 it will also be an Ethernet port. But having a shielded USB-C port on the top of the device means that you don't have to worry about any sort of electrical interference or anything. It's already like shielded and properly built into the console. B, you're going to have high-speed lanes because it's already there. But also, it means that theoretically you could plug in like an external SSD into the Switch 2, and then because there are two USB-C ports, you can like gracefully dock and undock this Switch with a little external hard drive like dongled off the top of it. But then you can't, like, in that scenario, you would not be able to run into the scenario of like, oh, I want to undock the Switch, but that means unplugging the hard drive with a game running on it. Now they can
I feel like in some way they would have to like not have that happen, because that just sounds like that's prone to like all sorts of corruption and errors and game breaking stuff.
I think that's ultimately why they never really went with external storage on the Switch. But now the door's open, and it would also make sense because one thing that's like a huge question about this device is going off of the spec sheet, it seems like the Switch 2 will have 256 gigs of internal storage. Pretty good. Thumbs up. It's not bad. But we don't really know what the expansion on this thing is going to be. It seems like it's going to be micro SD cards again, but like micro SD cards are not built to play AAA video games off of. Like, even on the Steam Deck, if you use the latest and greatest micro SD card, it's like the deck tells you to probably just install a big game on the internal storage instead of the SD card. The idea seems to be that Nintendo teamed up with a bunch of manufacturers, or this is just existing on its own. There's a new standard of micro SD called SD Express, which is way faster. And so I guess they'll, but I'm not discrediting that. I think that is going to be the case, but that's going to be very annoying to explain to people, and so I would not be surprised if they just adopt multiple methods of external storage just to kind of like remedy that a little bit.
Nintendo brings back their own custom memory cards.
Well, it seems like it wouldn't be custom. It would just be like you have to buy a specific spec of SD card.
And that's the easiest way to explain it, right? You want externals data, you have to get our specific.
You have to buy the one that has the Nintendo logo on it.
Yeah, the one with the superstar on it to represent 2 terabytes.
But yeah, I'm very curious about how they're going to handle storage, because like, not that I think the Switch 2 is gonna need like a PlayStation 5 SSD or something, but speed is sort of like the name of the game in the current generation now, and they're just gonna need reliable, fast storage. And so an external SSD on the Switch would be a little silly because it would be like dongled and everything, but in theory, it would work a lot better than even SD Express. It would be way faster, but
like you need like a little pocket to slide into on the back of the system.
Yeah, it needs like a magnet or something.
Yeah, that's the main issue facing that, because whatever storage solution you have needs to be playable in handheld as well, and I can't imagine it just some little SSD block dangling there like a keychain off the top of the Switch.
Also, they need that external memory, because I just checked, and 256 gigabytes is enough to store 90% of Call of Duty Black Ops 6.
Well,
Jesus.
The Switch 2 version of Black Ops 6 would probably not be the same size as like other iterations of the game. But yeah, that's like
you almost feel bad for all those Activision developers. Like, they're gonna have to make a whole other like texture set for this game.
Nah, just like ship it with the low quality textures.
Yeah.
Low fidelity. 480p. Just ship it in 480. You're done. But so on the USB-C on the top, the other suggestion I've seen around with accessories is like an external camera that you can plug into.
Yeah, well, that's the next thing I wanted to get into was video.
Yeah.
Does this carry video? Better question, can you do a Switch 2 dual monitor setup? Like, in theory, could I dock the Switch 2, connect that to a TV, and then use like a USB-C dongle to plug into the top port, and then you plug that into a separate TV, and then you could do like Mario Kart split screen, but each player has their own dedicated monitor.
That's pretty wild.
Which sounds ridiculous, but Sony wanted to do this with the PS3. So it's like, and it is doable. They could do it. The tech is there.
I mean, it's basically just LAN play, right?
The children yearn for the Wii U.
Exactly.
Well, the Wii U idea is what my idea is for this. That's what. So, like, I guess I'll just talk about what my prediction for the Switch 2. I've been wanting to have a dual screen thing for the successor for a while, to have like DS type games again, because I think the DS is like one of the more creative systems Nintendo's done.
Yeah, sure.
And DS NSO porting DS and 3DS games to Switch too. Like you could make some of them, especially on the 3DS side, can easily be made single screen, and they've shown that with stuff like Miitopia. But having both screens would just allow for like so much more, and you could get games like Nintendo Land on the Wii U and all that again. So I've always
all the ports that it opens up to.
Got to have everything on this system. So like I've always been trying to throw the idea, but I know it's unrealistic to have a Switch that actually has two screens attached to it like a DS.
Yeah,
like it would
Well,
be
yeah,
expensive
that's-
to do that.
That's been the thing. A lot of people have questioned if this means that they'll just announce a USB-C screen that just like attaches to the top of the device, and then you have a dual screen output, which like if the tech is there, if this thing does support dual monitor output, then I mean, yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't support both. I just at the same time then have to wonder about how graceful that is of a solution, and also how many people would even bother to deal with that.
It's like an optional thing. Like obviously the PS1 and the GameCube both had third-party like screens you could buy and attach to the console itself, so that you could play them on the go. But like it was obviously always an optional gimmicky thing that made a bit more sense for the GameCube, because they sort of intended you to carry that around with.
Yeah, I assume.
The thing is, for me, like it feels like we're getting to like the sort of piecemeal Sega Genesis element, where it's just like, oh, you can have this, you can add this extra thing, it lets you play some other games. I think that's just way too confusing, and I think Nintendo wants this to be like a streamlined system that is just like the main thing. We're getting rid of multiple platforms. Obviously, we don't have handheld and home console anymore, and that actually kind of introduces, even within one system, a handheld and home console like split. So because like you charge the other one separately to, like what if you lose it, do you buy another one? Can you replace just like parts of it? It just like it just introduces so much confusion.
Yeah. Well, that's why for me it's been more of a question of like, well that's why I'm pondering if this thing will just have dual monitor support overall, because if that's the case, and this isn't just like they aren't just because I think most people are in the mindset of, oh, they're gonna make a screen that plugs into the top and then you can play DS games on it. But obviously I don't think they would just sell an accessory that is a screen for virtual console play, which makes me wonder that if it does make me wonder if dual monitor support is like the gimmick, like, you know, like if it's like, as I said earlier, you could do 2 instances of Mario Kart on separate screens, because having like a big screen that attaches to the Switch 2 sounds like a very silly idea. But if it's like, say, like an iPad cover where you can set the Switch 2 up on a tabletop like Battleship mode, and then like the 2 screens kind of like bend oppositely, so you have like, you can have a dual screen configuration or just like a double-sided screen for 2 players.
Oh my god.
Now you're seeing where I'm getting at. Now you understand where it's like, oh, like actually,
I just
maybe.
want to revisit. The reason we were pausing this in the first place is because there's a USB-C port on top.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay.
Yeah.
And so the idea would be you would have these 2 separate things, which in each of your minds, is it a separate thing that you purchase, or is it part of the experience? Like you have to buy it.
I feel like, I mean, this is all speculation. I'm not going to be like, they're definitely doing this, but this is what people online have been speculating, some sort of like...
They're never wrong.
Yeah, they're definitely, you know, but I'm just trying to, like... it's more just trying to figure out what, like, the real, like, logistics of that would be, and then how it could appeal to just general use, because obviously I wouldn't think this is something that, like, is going to come with the Switch, nor is it going to be like hard required or something. I don't think Nintendo's going to release a Mario Party that requires a dual screen setup, but
Like, I assume the way it would work is that the Switch 2 would come with like a USB-C to HDMI that would plug into the top of the Switch 2, and then the HDMI would plug into the back of the second TV. And then it would just recognize that it's got two HDMIs plugged in and split the video up. Is that like how it would work? Is like, if I imagine that correctly?
Well, think of like plugging a computer into two monitors.
Yeah, although you do that through two separate HDMIs into the back of the computer. So, yeah.
So you have two USB-C ports, and I don't think they're gonna mirror each other. I think they could just work as separate outputs.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you can get your computer monitors to have separate outputs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it could, in theory, come with the actual Switch itself, because it's just it being bundled with another wire that's a USB-C to HDMI wire.
Well, that's the thing I'm wondering. I'm wondering if like their basic solution to the two-screen thing would just be like a wire that you just plug into the top of the Switch, and then you plug the other end into your TV. And all of this sounds ridiculous, but people were also theorizing this is how the Switch 1 would work. Like, there was theorizing about Miracast, or using like an HDMI wireless dongle, which I think they actually did test, but the latency was just like so bad.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is like so this kind of goes to what I was going to bring up in what I kind of think / kind of want for the Switch 2. And that's to sort of return to Wii U and have a two-screen setup that way, but instead of the Wii U console projecting the data to the actual gamepad, do it the other way around.
Yeah.
So the game itself projects to the dock, and then the dock puts the second screen up onto there. And it's not used for the same thing as you suggested, Colin, where it's two screens and for multiplayer, like two separate things. It's more like the Wii U, where like the touchscreen, the handheld has a different screen to the top, but it's still part of the same game. Whether that second screen is like a menu, or if it's like something like Nintendo Land, so one player plays with the actual system and the other four players play.
Well, everything I am talking about would include that too.
Yeah, but I mean, the way I guess you suggested it is with two screens plugged in. I mean, the way I'm envisioning it, it's like, two actual screens.
Yeah.
In living room, not one that's in
exactly.
That's although you could do that in theory if the tablet had a HDMI port on it.
Well, no. USB-C carries video.
Yeah, or USB-C to USB-C. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'm just theorizing that if there's two USB-C ports, then theoretically they could get two different video signals, like a monitor 1 and monitor 2 out of the Switch.
Yeah. No. Also, yeah. That's definitely the way I'm thinking about it doesn't use the USB-C at all. I think it's like something in the dock. Like, so we know the dock has a cooling fan in it, which doesn't necessarily mean it has like a CPU or something like that in it, like running. It could just be to cool the actual handheld itself down when it's in dock mode, and presumably outputting better resolution and stuff. But I like the idea of it having something in it, the dock being a bit more robust, so that the Switch 2 can project data to it and then display something different. And then you could get they could release an update to let's just say they do re-release Wind Waker HD, and they're like on the Switch 2. You could play it just like you did on the Wii U with the items on the screen, and then the actual gamepad itself and stuff like that. But you could also still take it with you on the go, just like without that two-screen setup, because obviously it's now portable. Maybe that's even where a purchasable second screen comes in. If you want to play in Wii U mode but on the go, you can buy that second screen, plug it into USB-C as an accessory.
Well, that's why it's really like a matter of me just trying to like if they wanted to do a dual screen gimmick, like this is how they could technologically do it. Yeah, that's definitely. This is all still speculation, but I'm just saying the tech is there, like, and it's not very it's not very like intensive tech. It just comes down to whether or not that is what Nintendo is planning, or if it really just Yeah,
Well-
yeah. Or if it just is a second USB-C port, just for shits and
For
giggles.
shits and gigs. Like, they definitely can. I think like I don't think my streaming idea I would like discount that option. You could have 3 screens. It's in
Yeah,
theory
yeah.
it go into the dock and then a USB-C into the top of the Switch gamepad that you're holding and then plug that.
I
Like, it
need
might
more
be a bit
screens.
too much power, but
Have
you
have
could
y'all
do that
ever
in
seen
theory.
like the 2005 version of the PS3 that had 2 HDMI ports on the back and like 3 Ethernet ports? That
For,
thing's
Wow.
insane.
why? For
Many
for
Ethernet
PS3, you
ports.
said?
Yeah, for the
Yeah,
PS3.
yeah.
Yeah, the E3 model of that thing has crazy fucking IO.
Why do
It's
you
like
even need that many Ethernet ports?
because they wanted
Plug 'em
they
into.
they unironically wanted you to be able to daisy chain all these systems, and also you could not do like gigabit Ethernet in 2005, so the idea was that you would plug more Ethernet cables into it for faster internet,
Wow.
which is a thing that did
I mean-
work in the 2000s.
Very hardware of his era. But with my Wii U idea, this is also what I think the C button would be used for. Because I've seen people suggest stuff like there was that video going around where someone 3D printed the Switch. It might be where this image comes from actually, and we're like, oh, the C stands for camera, and it's going to be for a
That's
camera that you plug into the USB-C at the top.
There's no way
And-
that's true.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't think that's true.
That's just not true because I don't see why you would have. You wouldn't if it was an accessory and not part of the
Yeah,
Switch
yeah.
itself. You wouldn't have a dedicated button to it on the.
Yeah, and why would there not just be a camera inside the Switch? If they
Yeah.
want a camera, they can put a camera in the Switch. That is very possible. You just put
Yeah.
it in the
Yeah.
in the corner, in the top right corner or something. Like it's
if
it's
you're-
not a
thing-
problem.
If you're
One thing
playing,
I wanted-
if you're playing docks, what would you even use that for? Like, you got your Switch with the
Yeah.
camera on it in the dock, facing
Well,
you in the
I
living room.
I actually don't think that's
What's the
ridiculous
point in that?
because I think that opens up some sort of like connect or move style game design. Like if the dock, say the dock is as tall as it is on the back, but only half as tall as it is on the front, then you can have the camera pointing out at you and some of the screen showing, and you can show some information and use the camera and integrate that into game design. I think that's very possible actually.
I mean, I would imagine that we're talking though about a third-party camera that so it's not part of the main Switch. It just plugs into the USB-C on the top, so it would always
Oh, sorry, I was still
Something
talking
like
about the
idea
internal,
of a
the idea
camera
internal one.
installed
Yeah.
into it.
And of
yeah.
course, we can all imagine what that would be like. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it won't have that because I think if it did have a camera, then we would know. Like, I think we
Yeah,
know
I
it has a microphone, right?
Well,
Like,
that's what I
Oh
wanted to-
man, I can't wait to be called slurs in Splatoon.
Oh.
Like, it has a
What's
built-in mic.
That's the thing I wanted to mention. It's supposed to have a mic, but we don't actually have a. It's not modeled on the prototype, like in
Yeah.
in any way. Like it's not in the CAD models, or I don't think people pointed out where it would be on that PCB or anything. Not to say that it's like it won't have it. It's just like that's one of those things I mentioned earlier. Like all of those designs are not finalized, so it's
Mhm.
kind of hard to like nail down certain specifics.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think that C button will be used for a camera. I guess is my point.
Could it be
Take away
used
from
for
I
I
mean-
don't know, chat?
that. Well, I mean, I suppose there's an option for that. My idea was that it was going to be like a connect button. So if this Wii U thing does exist, but say you were playing it in handheld mode and you didn't want to play, you don't want it like automatically connecting to the dock and then like having the second screen appear on the TV or forcing it into that mode. You'd want to play it handheld mode at home, not on the TV. Like I think it would need I think it would need a button that you have
Right.
to press that connects it to the dock or disconnects it to the dock. And
I feel
C-
like-
C for connect works. This is how I imagine that.
I feel like if a Pro Controller 2 leaks in the next month before the thing is actually revealed, we're gonna
Mhm.
that's gonna give us a slightly better idea of what some of these like new or extra buttons do. Because
Yeah.
like I don't think those grip back buttons are going to be on a Pro controller too. And then
Right.
like
I don't think the C button will be on a Pro controller too either.
yeah, it'd be well, or if it does, it has some sort of like boring system
Yes,
purpose.
it's a different
Yeah,
purpose for it. Because I think just the fact that it's not on both Joy-Cons, and it's only on the right Joy-Con, makes me think that like it's not something that you would be actively pressing all the time. Like it's not like an additional fifth button for ABXY. It's placement, its location on a single Joy-Con makes.
if it
I mean,
was for
clearly a
gameplay,
system-based button.
if it was for gameplay, they would put it where your fingies go.
Exactly.
It's like same principle as the grip buttons. It would go where your fingers go.
Yeah, and they're trying to like, I think, have these Joy-Cons be a bit more unified. Like the prototype has the IR camera in the left Joy-Con and the right Joy-Con.
Yeah.
So there's now 2 IR cameras, so you can use either controller for games like WarioWare now.
Dual ring fit.
forced to use. Yeah.
I actually
They
wonder
do
if that
Labo
is.
again. Now
I
they've
w-
got multiple
was-
options.
I was gonna say, I wonder if it is like a situation where it's like, where it is like, there's 2 IR cameras, so now you can do 2 instances of Ring Fit. You don't have to buy a second right Joy-Con.
Ring Fit 2. 2 rings now.
Co-op Ring Fit, like you and your friend are just like fucking sweating. Like,
Although I will say for Ring Fit, because I imagine with the Switch 2, right, that the previous Joy-Cons will also work on this. They won't be able to slide into the Switch 2 itself, so you would be able to do handheld mode, but you would be able to connect them and play it like just on Bluetooth or whatever it is that they use.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. So like with that in mind, I'd like to think that if they do a Ring Fit 2, that the Ring Fit, the original Ring Fit itself, would still be compatible, so that you don't have to buy a new ring to go with Ring Fit 2, purely because the new Joy-Cons are too big for the old ring to work. Like,
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping that that's the case, because
That's the other thing. There's such like
don't
a
want to
huge
buy
size
another-
difference. These things are going to be larger than the
Yeah.
original stock Joy-Cons.
Exactly. So all of the stuff you could snap the Joy-Cons into, like the original Labo stuff, the actual, grip that you got, the one that doesn't charge anything, any third-party accessories that get released for the Joy-Con, these new Joy-Cons just won't be able to work in any of them because they're just too big.
I wonder if they'll just not include a Joy-Con grip this time around.
No, they will.
I don't-
They have to.
Do they though? I don't.
Yeah, because if it's a different size and
No,
and
I
the
just,
primary
I
way
just,
of
I just mean they'd sell it separately because I think,
Oh.
I think they've just shown that there's such like a divide
fair enough.
between people who would just rather use the Pro controller docked
yeah.
than
You're right.
Joy-Cons in the grip. I would not
Well,
be surprised.
I mean,
Well, I
okay,
think
okay,
Also,
so
like, would you use the Joy-Cons on their own separate, or use the grip rather than the Pro controller?
how much does a Pro controller cost?
$70.
$70.
Yeah, so I've never bought one. I've always used the grip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
would
do
love
have
to
a
see
Pro
the
controller,
official-
and I really like the Pro controller, but I don't use it for everything. Sometimes I just use it for Zelda. I've been using the grip. But
I
also
feel like I
used
don't know
to- I
anyone
also
who
just
uses
used
the
to-
grip.
I
I
use
also
grip
just
constantly.
used to play games with just the 2 Joy-Cons separately, and like just down by my side rather than holding
Yeah,
them.
yeah, me too. Me too.
So,
Leave down in the comments below if you use the Joy-Con grips or a Pro controller.
or the Joy-Cons
Or-
on their own.
Yeah, or if you use the little grips. I'd actually love to know hard numbers on that because I don't think
I
even Nintendo's ever done that.
Now that's something we can ask when we do our Mega Switch poll next year.
Yeah,
That's
honestly.
good. I am curious how many people play games using the Joy-Con with the grip plugged in, and which lets you have the wrist strap and stuff.
Yeah.
I play with the Joy-Cons sometimes not plugged into anything, but I almost never attach the wrist strap. Thing
Oh,
on
I
the side.
always
That's
attach the wrist
that's like
strap because
one
those things
extra
are
step
tiny.
that it's like one extra step I can't be asked to do.
Yeah, like the Joy-Cons
I
are
have
too
wrist straps,
small.
but I cut off the strap. So they're
Oh,
just
so it's just the thing you
bits.
slide on,
Yeah.
but not the strap.
yeah, exactly.
That's a middle ground between.
Yeah,
There
it's
are
nice.
three
I love
ways.
it. I'm a big fan.
So yeah, I just like I know I'm not clumsy enough where I'll drop the Joy-Cons. So like obviously I'll put it on with the strap if I'm going to play something like WarioWare where I'm swinging my arms around. But just comfortably sitting there, I don't see the point.
Yeah.
That's might just be that is an interesting data point, and I'll have to make a mental note to include that as a question in this.
I'd also love to know how they would do a Switch 2 Joy-Con grip, because if it can't slide like down, if it has to like
yeah,
clip in, I
magnets.
wonder if like the grips have to like extend or something to allow you know what I mean, to just
Yeah.
allow the Joy-Cons to slot in and then they tighten up.
Maybe it'll have like a clip on either end, so you open the clip, the Joy-Cons slide in, and then you like clip it on the sides to keep it in place. Something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Alright. Have any of the leaks mentioned the IR camera? No, the IR camera is there, Vinny. We just said there are now 2 IR cameras, so they're both there's double the IR cameras for Switch 2 than there was for Switch 1.
Now you can have even more complex Labo.
Yeah.
Yippee.
Doug Bowser
Like-
can now spy on you in infrared in 2 different angles.
There was a lot of
Damn.
talk about whether or not they would remove the quote unquote gimmicks from the Switch 1 Joy-Cons. And they're not gimmicks, they're hardware features. I don't know what to tell you guys. You can't we can't keep going through gaming calling like gyro a gimmick. That doesn't make any it's just a different type of control, folks. I'm sorry.
No, I don't need to shout someone out in a negative way, but my friend Bo made a video the other day talking about this little like camera thing coming out the top. And he's like, well, there's always gimmicks on Nintendo systems. Even like the N64, the joystick was a gimmick. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like we're taking this way too far, buddy.
Yeah, I like oh, is HD Rumble gonna come back? Of course. Why would it's Rumble?
Yeah.
It's
like
modern
Rumble's
haptic
in like all
feedback.
the other systems
When you
as
really
well.
think about it, the discs on the GameCube were a gimmick. Never been done before.
Yeah.
True,
I was gonna say
true.
if there's any hardware thing that could be considered a gimmick, it would probably be the touchpad on the DualShock, because I genuinely don't know what.
Mhm.
I don't know what. I really do. What? What do you want from me, Sony? Why did you do this?
For Astrobot and nothing else.
For Killzone Shadowfall, and then 10 years later they made Astrobot, and then it's like that's it. That's all the iconic use they got out of that.
Yeah, the new Joy-Cons will definitely have all the features the old Joy-Cons
Yeah,
have.
I don't see.
Will there be
why
any
it wouldn't.
new features? Like I can see HD Rumble being a bit more fine-tuned and to be better. Because like I feel
maybe
like
just like stronger. I don't know.
I feel like the DualSense actually uses HD Rumble better than the Joy-Cons do. Given that the Joy-Cons were marketed in that initial second reveal with Koizumi as like HD Rumble being a big thing of it, and then I don't feel like many games really took advantage of it after like 2018.
I think it's just one of those things where it is used and utilized all the time. It's just like not something you're supposed to really notice because you're busy playing a video game. There's actually been a lot of instances where, because they introduced haptic feedback, that's all that HD Rumble is, it's modern haptic feedback. They introduced that to the DualSense, and so developers started updating Switch games to mimic the haptic feedbacks of the DualSense. And generally there is actually like parity between the two. It's just not something anyone's really gonna notice, because like why would you?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it is that it just needs to be stronger, because it's one of those things I remember being a big gimmick. Obviously, you had 1-2 switch. It's all feel the ice cubes, blah blah blah. But like Shantae, Half Genie Hero used haptic feedback when Shantae danced, and you could feel that. And then you've got obviously that really insane announcement video for that one Senran Kagura game where they're like, we're going to use haptic feedback to its fullest, and they're all in like lab coats and shit.
Well, if you've noticed, those games make you actually have to like focus your attention onto the controller and how it rumbles, as opposed to like, you know what game has HD rumble is the Doom 2016 and Eternal ports, but you will literally never notice it because you're like busy shotgunning demons. But all of like the shotgun racks, like opening doors, like all those animations, they do actually have little HD rumble touches. They're just, you know, you're
Maybe
playing a
it's just the
video
thing
game.
you just don't notice. 'Cause
Yeah,
not enough
it
games
really
do it
it really is that.
Well, what do we think the Joy-Cons will have any other additional gimmicks? I assume there's been nothing that's like confirmed or in spec or anything like that to suggest.
I feel like the
That's
fact that
something.
they're I mean like the idea I mentioned earlier, the idea that when they're used on their side, they have the grip button and the SL SR buttons are bigger.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that could be something. Cause like that's another question I'd like to know. How many people are using the sideways Joy-Con configuration?
Joy-Con sideways.
Yeah.
I'm sure
I mean,
for
especially at this
NSO
point in the
games-
generation.
Well, that's the thing. I'm sure for NSO games, they're like, you don't really need much more. Like N64 games are kind of pushing it.
Last time
Yeah.
I used it, this is a fun story. Last time I used a sideways Joy-Con was when I made me and my friends try the stretchers, which you have to play with the Joy-Con.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last time I think I used a sideways Joy-Con is purely when I don't have enough controllers to go around in multiplayer for everyone to have 2 controllers each, which means it's usually for some sort of random multiplayer game, like a party game or Super Monkey Ball, Banana Rumble, something like that.
Yeah.
But I do think like one of the things I feel like also fell off the wayside with the Switch one, I don't expect the Switch 2 to pick up on this, is like the cooperative games like Snipper Clips and the Stretchers, where one person has one Joy-Con, the other has the other, and you have to have that parity. I think that's the word I'm trying to say.
Parity.
Parity, yes, between both. Like, because you do get like people clearly like that because you have Brothers and that one that was Game of the Year that's a sequel to Brothers.
It Takes Two.
It Takes Two.
Not a sequel.
That have that exact same idea behind it. But I don't think anyone ever really, outside of those few examples, I don't think many devs really took advantage of it. At least not in a big game that's got noticed.
Mm.
But that's something I would like to see more in the Switch too. I don't necessarily know if it's going to happen.
No.
Right. Does anyone have any other ideas for what they think the C button might do on the controller? Obviously,
I really have no idea aside from like really boring system functionality
There
stuff.
still is the screenshot button on the other side, right? Or the
Yeah.
exit button, whatever it is. Okay.
Yeah, and it doesn't have a C on it, so
Sure.
I would assume it's not the same thing.
I mean,
at that point, it makes sense to have like a home and a screen capture button on both Joy-Cons, so that if you are playing single Joy-Con mode, you've always got access to them too. But that's clearly not the case, so...
Yeah, I don't know.
Who the hell knows?
Who knows? Well, let's
It
talk
could
about
be, you
why don't we
know,
talk about system stuff itself, like not stuff that is confirmed, but like more UI stuff, the menus, the eShop.
I was actually going to lead into that because I wonder if that NSO app will just vanish. If they'll just put it like, if they'll put voice chat and everything on the system.
The mobile
you know,
NSO app. I mean,
'cause-
you could have both just exist, I suppose.
Yeah.
That NSO app is completely useless, though. I mean, it's been losing features the longer it goes on.
Yeah.
What? Oh, the thing on the home menu?
No, the thing on the
No,
mobile phones. Remember
Yeah.
they originally
Yeah.
use this app on your phone to speak to your friends in Splatoon. Like, it had like a bunch of other games that it was connected to, like Super Smash Bros. And stuff, that it's been slowly taking those features off of the app And it's just
Yeah.
like, why? What's even the point?
I had the same thought process as Tucker because I forgot that even existed. I'm like, wait, what? Huh?
Yep. It's
Yeah.
the Japan version of the app has a lot more features on it. Like it connects to my Nintendo and you can do a bunch of extra stuff. But they really
Yeah.
half-assed the Western version of it, probably because they knew no one was gonna fucking use it.
Yeah, that I'm pissed off we didn't get that My Nintendo app that Japan has.
Yeah.
The one that actually logs how many hours you've been playing a game. It's like,
Yeah.
why? Why?
Well, so I used the parental controls app.
yeah.
That does the same thing.
Yeah,
It has that feature in it.
I just, believe it or not, I don't lock my own Switch, and so I can just check. It's awesome. And
Yeah,
it
no,
has it on
I-
a calendar. It's on. Yeah, I love it.
I get you. I just
I've had that feature since 2017, personally.
I'm just saying, like,
I'm not saying
why
it's
isn't it
smart.
an app?
Yeah.
that's my bottom point.
Why
is
is
like,
it two separate apps? Yeah.
why isn't it in an app? And then why isn't the cooler of those two apps over here?
But we know, yes, as Ozzy's saying in the chat, we know that the underlying like operating system for the Switch 2 will be the same as that of the Switch 1.
Yeah, I don't expect
which
that
makes-
to change.
Yeah, and that makes total sense, especially with like this is going to clearly have backwards compatibility. I don't think anyone's arguing that it won't. But it's like whether or not they like how they change it up, because just because it has the same OS doesn't mean that it's going to look the same. And everyone agrees that the Switch's OS is kind of lackluster compared to what's come before it. And I think that's really where I want to see big changes with the Switch 2. Like, it doesn't need to go the full extent that 3DS did by giving me
God, I hope not.
stamps and badges and all that to attach on and
Yeah.
several different themes. Although I would love to see the return of Nintendo Badge Arcade. I love that shit. I totally understand why they cut it to make for the Nintendo Switch, but it just needs to be better at organizing. I don't know if Nintendo has just an issue with optimizing organization in the Switch generation. Like looking at Zelda, playing Echoes of Wisdom, and I love it, but that goddamn UI for selecting your Echo is atrocious.
I feel like it's the opposite. Every time I'm like, man, the Switch UI could use more stuff. I use an Xbox or a PlayStation 5, and then I'm like, actually, no, no,
I
it
think-
doesn't.
Leave this alone.
I think there's like a middle ground that needs to be hit.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Yeah,
I want to be able to
I-
organize
mhm.
my games better on the
Yeah.
Switch.
Just the ability to prioritize what apps are frontmost, rather than having to go to your entire game library and then pick it out from there. That would be a huge improvement.
Yeah, like the PS4 has a good system for it, because the PS4 is the other system I use, and I mainly use it to watch stuff. But I just have things in neat folders there, so not everything's just a very quick touch away. Just go to the media folder, and I've got all my apps like Crunchyroll and Netflix and all that. If I want to play,
I hate that media folder on PS4.
If I
It's
wanna
like
play
mandatory. They're like, you
want
want to use Plex, you gotta open a thing, and then you gotta go through a couple menus. It's like, fuck
Yeah.
off.
It's annoying that it's mandatory, but like it at least makes it easier. It's better than having to go all the way to the back of the Switch, click the
I'm the
all
opposite.
button, and go all the way down to Y to click on the YouTube app
They
to
could
bring that
use
shit up.
they could use more options, certainly, but I think it's like perfect as is. I love alphabetical order. I love that shit.
I need more options. I think
I
just
do it
for,
by
like,
playtime. So I have
Yeah,
like,
you can do that
Smash
as well.
and Mario Kart and Pokemon and Animal Crossing at the top, and then I have the stuff I've never touched at the bottom. It's very
Yeah.
easy. And then I just kind of have a general mental map of how much I played. And also I just like, it's satisfying. I'm like, oh, I played Luigi's Mansion 3 longer than I played whatever. Like, I don't know. I find a weird satisfaction in that.
I would be more satisfied with that if it wasn't for the fact that transferring your data from one Switch to another resets that. Like when I got my OLED
of
and I
course,
moved all
yes,
the data over
yeah.
from the Switch to the OLED, any game I had pre-OLED, it
Correct.
registered as me playing for 0 hours.
Yes, exactly.
Which completely ruined any any motivation I had to go in
Yeah.
the last play order. Now I try and organize them in folders, but I just to get to folders, you have to go to the more section first, which is just annoying. So I don't know. It just needs. I just feel like there are ways you could optimize it to make it just nicer to access stuff. And they don't seem like they'd be too taxing on the Switch to implement, and yet they never did it. And the same for themes. They obviously intended to have themes on the Switch, and I'm not massively bothered because I would never pay for a theme. Like the only themes I have on 3DS are the free ones. But they clearly had the option for it to be there, and then just never did anything of it. They basically just kept it relegated to a dark and light mode.
Yeah, I think it's a little more. I wonder if I don't know why they never just added a color picker or something, but like, I wonder if it's just like one of those things where it's like, well, it's so defined, but I'm really not sure. I'd expect them to do a little bit more for the Switch 2 though, just to like give it its own kind of unique visual presentation.
Yeah. Yeah,
but I don't know how far they would go, because I do feel like the lightweightedness of the Switch OS is like one of its best attributes. Like the Sony UI is always fucking up, and then Microsoft literally cannot. They need to like hire people who know how to make a UI, because they keep changing it every 2 years because everyone's like, wow, this is bad. What is like the Xbox UI goes through more refreshes than fucking anything else, and every single time it's like, this was not made by humans. Like, what are you guys doing?
I'll tell you one UI that definitely needs to change, and I feel like it won't, is the eShop.
Yeah.
My god, is the eShop an absolute nightmare to navigate through. But I feel like given the backwards compatibility is obviously going to extend to digital games as well, that it might just have the same eShop. Like, it might just connect to the same one, and then if you're on a Switch 1, you just can't buy Switch 2.
They just add a Switch 1 games tab to
the
side, and then it's like...
And the Switch 1, it's the Switch 2 games tab that you just can't. Or it's just
I do
kind of
wonder, I feel like... I feel like they probably did hold off a lot of changes to the Switch 1 UI and OS, just like... Not because it's like, oh, we need a more powerful system to do all of these things, but I think they probably were just like, it's fine. I don't, like...
It gets the job done, we'll wait till Switch 2 to fix it.
Most of the complaints of the Switch UI are, like, nitpicks. Like, they're not
We'll wait a whole generation. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I don't know, I think the eShop ones are pretty dire. Like, with how many games get uploaded to the Switch, it's like as bad as Steam used to be.
Yeah.
In terms of trying to find anything. Like, you basically can't find a game nowadays unless it's through social media and word of mouth.
Yeah. But that's also like, I don't know people who just like browse the PSN store. Or like,
me and my friends have been...
I know people who browse just the eShop. Like, just go onto the eShop and just like go
See
through
what's there.
the latest releases over the last few months just to see what shite has been uploaded and see if there's anything funny. Go to whatever's the top selling stuff right now, because usually people put garbage at like discounts of 90%.
Really, the core difference between the Switch eShop and everyone else is that like the PS4 hides the new releases tab under like 50 different windows, so you can't see like Life of Black Tiger 2 uploaded to like to the front page, but it's like it's the same dealio.
Well, I've heard that Steam has vastly improved its...
Has it?
No.
Yeah.
I
go to the
I don't
featured...
use the Steam store ever. This is just what I'd seen talked about online.
I literally just refreshed the Steam front page. The first game on the new and trending is Sex Hospital.
Well, like that game. I don't understand. What's the issue? We all bought that the other day, right?
No
Is that just
hentai
me?
girls
Hold
for
on.
that. Maybe they're more similar than I gave them credit for.
Right above EA Sports FC trademark 25. Like,
Or maybe it just needs to be more about like the featured and recommended and stuff like that.
yeah, that's
Like the Switch being able to
yeah.
tell what sort of games you play based on your purchase history, and actually give you recommendations that match rather than just chucking everything at you.
Yeah, they definitely need like a better
Yeah.
featured page.
One feature on that I'm amazed isn't on the eShop is just the ability to like give people games as gifts. Like,
Yeah, they need to.
Like
You
I,
can do that on PlayStation or Xbox, can you?
I have no idea.
I think you
I don't
can
know.
on Xbox. I don't know about PlayStation.
I know you
You
can.
can gift on Xbox. I just remembered. I just saw a prompt for it yesterday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So like, because me and my friends tend to buy each other Christmas gifts and stuff like that, or birthday gifts, just by looking at the Steam wish list. But like, I would much rather have gifts given to me through the Switch because I'm more likely to play it that way, rather than my Steam library, or like send people games via Switch if it's like a Switch exclusive game. And you can make a wish list on the eShop. But like the wish list is just basically for you to remember what games you wanted to buy.
Yeah.
You can't gift anything. You can't like look at other people's wish lists and stuff like that. It's just like it's there for you, and it just feels like a half-baked inclusion. It just needs more features like that. Can you sort stuff out by publisher like you could on the Wii Shop? I know the eShop has
You
like
can
Yeah,
go
you can.
to a go to a
Yes.
publisher page, and then they just have everything they've put out.
Right. Like, I'm just thinking that the eShop just needs a bit of an overhaul.
It
to
just
make
needs
it
a
easier to
hide
find.
new. That's literally what it is. I think most people just want the new releases tab to be hidden. Like
Here's what it
that's really what it boils down to.
Just have it be recommended.
Yeah, you have to open a thing to open a thing, and then you can get to new releases.
For Nintendo, the great thing about a Switch 2, even if it is functionally very similar in form factor, if they overhaul the UI, if they overhaul the if there's Mii's, if they change the eShop, if they add chat and things like that, it'll feel like a massive step up. I mean, it could look identical. And if they've changed the entire internal structure of the thing, people are gonna be like, "Oh my god, this is next generation gaming." Because they set the bar incredibly low for themselves, which may be kind of smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's that they set the bar low. It's that they don't they don't need to not to make excuses for them not adding hardware features or ever. I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's not every suggestion is a surefire this will make the console better. But I do agree. Basic that's why I was saying they might have just waited for a next generation, not because of any power leap, but just because it will make a better, more defining first impact than visually than if they had updated the OS and then they revealed the Switch 2 and then it just looked the same. Because the PS5 UI is not so dramatically different from the PS4's, but it's different enough that you're ooh, it's a new thing. And then Xbox doesn't know what they're doing, but that's beside the point.
It's beside the point, yeah.
If you've opened up an Xbox, it's yeesh.
Do you think this is obviously something Nintendo doesn't have control over, but do you think that the Switch 2 will get more media apps than the Switch 1 has?
I
'Cause the
fucking
Switch 1
hope
only has
so.
YouTube
I
and
think so.
Crunchyroll, and that's it.
Every time I turn on the Switch OLED, I'm like, God, I'd love Plex to be on this thing. I'd love if I could just watch fucking anything on this thing, which I know is sort of antithetical to what they were doing with the Switch. It seems like they were just trying to be this is a games machine. This is a games machine. You have your phone for everything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, at this point, shit, what if the C button's a multitasking button? You know, like what if you just can just
C for context.
yeah, like what if
content?
what if you can just like hit that button and open up Apple Music or something? Like
I mean, that is something I
It'd be
would
nice.
like to see a change for, because one of the
Yeah.
things I like with PlayStation that Switch doesn't have is like if I'm playing a game and then I want to go like, I don't know, watch the YouTube app or the Crunchyroll app or whatever, like it basically puts both into sleep mode. Whereas if I want to watch like YouTube on my Switch, I have to like turn off the game I was playing.
yeah.
And it's just like I'd rather like have the media apps like that be a separate thing that where I can have them open in the background, or at least not shut off the game I was playing for it.
Yeah. That's like a RAM limitation thing.
Yeah.
I actually do wonder if the Switch 2 would do like better multitasking or something.
That would be nice.
It's got so much more RAM. That's the other thing. This thing's got 12 gigs of RAM, which is actually 2 gigs more than the Xbox Series S.
Damn, it's gonna have loads of multitasking.
Yeah, what if they add the split feature? That remember Microsoft being like, you can put Pandora on the side of your screen on your Xbox One, and then they even dedicated a whole button to it, and then they got rid of that software feature, but the button is still there.
Didn't the Wii U have something like that where you could have when they were advertising Wii U chat, and it was like you can have the chat up in the corner while you're playing a game to talk to people as they guide you through.
Yeah, they kind of
party
wanted
is
to do. Well, I guess you can open up the web browser while playing a game.
Yeah, but can you have it be up on the side while you're playing?
No.
No, yeah, so that's the difference.
Because the system had like 1 gig of RAM. It wasn't. But you could do what you were saying earlier, where you don't actually have to close the game. You can just open up the web browser and go to YouTube. That's a question. Will they put a web browser on this thing?
I don't think so. I don't think they'll have a web browser. I will tell you something I do think they'll have, though. Some kind of replacement to either social media or the sharing screenshots thing.
Yeah.
So I think like that, have it like the ability to share stuff to Twitter and Facebook, but mostly Twitter, was like a really good way of recommending games to people and getting Nintendo stuff more out there. And obviously Musk has completely tanked this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think Facebook alone is enough to keep it there. Because you can still technically send stuff to Facebook.
Yeah.
But I can see Nintendo even retroactively adding it to Switch 1. Releasing some kind of bespoke replacement. I don't want to go as far as to say it'd be something like Miiverse 2.
Oh my gosh.
Like but some kind of recommendation feature where you can upload screenshots and videos and share them with people through the Switch. I'm trying to think how.
Yeah, no, I get you, because like the PlayStation and Xbox have like their own social features.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that no one uses them.
Yeah,
like there is like a community feed on both systems, but they're just like you're looking at your friends' Call of Duty quickscopes. Like it's not.
Yeah, I think bringing something like that back. Because the one flaw with Miiverse and its communities and stuff is it doesn't really recommend other games to people, because it's like if you're here in the New Super Mario Brothers U Miiverse page, it's because you play New Super Mario Brothers U.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas the benefit of uploading stuff to Twitter was like people could see a gameplay screenshot or a clip of you getting like a really high score or a great time trial in Mario Kart and being like, oh, that was really cool. What game is this? I don't know why I use Mario Kart as the example for trying to recommend a game. Everyone has
What
that.
the fuck is Mario?
Hey, I've got this
Like,
really cool. I
someone
got this really cool game you should check out. You might not have heard of it.
Legend of Zelda: Breath of the
It's
Wild.
called Sex Hospital.
That's it. Where am I going to share all my Sex Hospital clips? if I no longer have a way of doing it on social. Some sort of social media replacement or recommendation replacement feature. I don't exactly know how it would work. It could just be like the PlayStation's social aspects, but something along those lines to replace the ability to upload stuff to Twitter and Facebook, which might still stick around. The Facebook one at least might still stick around. Maybe they'll add threads to it, but like their own bespoke replacements. In the case of Facebook also going to the shitter, they don't have to cut another feature because they've got their own version. So that's something I think we'll definitely get.
I mean, maybe that's like another situation where it's like, I don't know if they'd do another Miiverse just because of like, not only or like not, yeah, maybe some sort of basic feed, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like people are really too interested in like. Obviously, like Nintendo fans have like a love for Miiverse and everything, but it seems like the general populace doesn't really give a shit about like built-in social features on consoles.
Yeah. I think the sharing screenshots and videos thing did like wonders on the marketing front for Nintendo, that they want to have some way of being able to do that again. But something
I was gonna say, I would kind of like. I like thinking about this more. It does kind of make me think like, yeah, I don't. You say what you're gonna say. I want to reword it in my brain.
I was just thinking Nintendfluencer or some bullshit like that, like an RSS feed you get set up that people can look at that has like all your recommended games and screenshots and stuff like that.
Now I remember what I was gonna say.
Nintendo or something.
I feel like if anything, the schmoove should be to push for more kind of like external services on the system itself, like how you can use Discord on a PlayStation or an Xbox.
God.
I think I think more people would be interested in that than anything like oh, you can share screenshots to Twitter. You know, like I think people would just rather have social stuff built in.
Yeah, I suppose they serve a slightly different purpose, because I guess the whole idea of showing screenshots is to get people interested in a game that they might not have heard of before. Like, at least from Nintendo's point of view, that's the interest. Whereas I think something like Discord is for like, you know, group chats for online and stuff. And I think I agree that's something they should have, but Nintendo needs to actually start baby steps having group chats that we're talking, because they do have it on the Switch, but only for very specific games, which is like weird. They need like a more general version of that, like something even just like the Xbox team chats, like the fact that it was on the fucking 360 and is not a feature on Nintendo systems is still wild to me. But maybe that will change.
Yeah. Well, as I said, that they couldn't really do too much with the OS because there wasn't really like a ton of RAM to work with anyway. But also, I think they wanted to keep it very just like kind of low key and straightforward. But if they are shoving like way more RAM into the Switch 2, like even more than one of the boxes on the market, then I don't see why not.
Need at least 4 gigabytes of dedicated RAM for the Street Pass to return.
Yeah, I don't think this thing's gonna be like it has 12 gigs and then like 11 gigs are allotted for games. You know, like
yeah,
it's still just 1 gig for the OS. I'm sure they'll slide another gigabyte towards the system features.
How much RAM does the Switch have?
4.
4. Okay, so yeah, it's like
RAM.
Of RAM.
It's got 4 gig RAM of low power DDR4, I believe.
Okay. So we're getting close to the 2-hour mark. So, I mean, we're still 15 minutes, but are there any other predictions people have, like for the hardware and software? Not the software. Sorry, for might be losing my voice. For the hardware or the OS or the Switch 2 or gimmicks or something like that. Because I feel like software is its own entire other conversation. It's
I
he's got an idea.
I want to know One of the specs mentioned HDMI 2.1, and that's a given.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like how the OLED dock had HDMI 2.0, and then I made that Twitter thread I regret. But this thing's using HDMI 2.1. Does it support HDR? And more importantly, does the handheld screen support HDR? Because that would be incredible. I feel like there's already been so much talk about like the screen, like it's going to be a 1080p screen. They'll probably use like upscaling and DLSS to achieve that resolution a lot of the time. But I would love to know if you're sitting at home and you don't know what HDR is. Let me try to, how do I explain it in the most like basic way possible? Basically, your monitor is only allowed to use a certain amount of colors, and then HDR expands that like greatly, and then also adds like contrast values and like brightness values to video, so you can have like a light source that is really bright while as the rest of the screen is kind of like dim or shadowy. It looks really cool. It's something you got to see in person and like on a good display to
Imagine a lot of
fully
people's smartphones probably have HDR for the camera nowadays.
there is the all the new iPhones have HDR displays. It's cool. It actually, I think it makes a bigger difference like visually to some games than even like boosting resolution in some regards, like just having that like deeper light and color depth. I want to see Nintendo games with HDR. I also want to see if it supports since it supports DLSS and RTX seemingly through Nvidia features, I want to see if it supports G-Sync, the variable refresh rate technology. That would be neat.
I don't know what that one is.
Basically,
Makes the game go good.
So what it does is it updates the refresh rate of whatever monitor you're using to match the frame rate of the game, thus eliminating like visible choppiness because all those like extra thrown away frames are not being shown.
I see. Well, I mean, these are prediction videos, Colin. So do you predict it's going to have HDR?
I would like, if I'm being conservative, I would think HDR docked, not handheld. And then G-Sync, I don't know. I actually don't know if they do G-Sync, because the way, this is nerd shit, but the way the Switch does video out is it's actually doing DisplayPort, and then like the dock has an onboard chip that converts the DisplayPort signal to HDMI. And doing variable refresh rate over that is like really hard unless you're using like specific customized hardware. So that's like a huge maybe.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, but my Xbox does it. My PS5 does it. It'd be cool if I don't have a PS5, but
the Switch 2.
They do it. It'd be cool if the Switch 2 does it.
All right. Any other predictions for the hardware, OS stuff from Tucker Slink?
You guys have been pretty thorough. I mean, to be honest, I hadn't really thought too much about a lot of this UI stuff, and I'm not really, as you are, Josh, I'm not really familiar with a lot of the technical stuff. I was glad to hear that you had a similar idea to me of showing the game on the handheld screen and then project like another thing going up on the TV. I mean, that to me would make it kind of the ultimate Nintendo system. It would be able to do basically everything, but I feel like that's too hopeful, to be honest.
Potentially, my only concern with it would be latency, what the latency would be like between the thing and the screen. But I mean, the Wii U could do it fine. So it depends on what they chuck into the dock to get that working. Which I guess we haven't talked a lot about the dock, but I kind of just expect the dock to be the same.
I feel like it's going to be the same.
With the fan and ideally some kind of like computing power in there to do my whole reversing Wii U idea.
I
Yeah.
think it would. I think the most realistic element to include is some sort of either see-through or lower part on the dock so you can see the screen, or a screen on the dock itself that can show some sort of information, show the time, show a message showing up, show a little bit of news, have a little bit of effects going on if you're playing a game. I think that would be pretty cool.
Give it gamer neon lights.
Sure.
One thing we haven't touched on yet tonight. Today, this morning, it's not nighttime.
It's not night.
But they've been given the perfect excuse to just launch this shit at $400.
Oh, because of the PS Pro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was gonna leave price, release date, and name as the last thing we predict. So if we don't have any guesses for hardware and gimmicks and stuff, then yeah, let's talk about price. Let's go through each of us. Price you expect it to be, when you expect it to release, and what you expect it to be called. Let's do that.
Now I have an unfortunate thing to share with you guys. Is I've been talking about this with my friends, and I think there's a serious chance this is a holiday 2025 video game.
No, okay.
Now this isn't anything massive to go on because we still have October, and I think that if it's not announced, or if we're not getting any information by October, I think it's too late. I think that would indicate a later next year release. But I also think it's very possible for them to, of the projects that we are pretty confident that exist and are largely seem to be finished, that they could squeeze out another 8 months worth of game releases for Switch 1 and then just have this be a holiday 2025 thing. I mean, of course, we know about Pokemon and Metroid, but you imagine that there's some sort of Kirby game. You imagine that there's, that rumored Fire Emblem 4 thing that's been sitting around, and they've got all these different smaller teams working on remakes. We already have Donkey Kong announced. I mean, they could make a totally solid 8 months of Switch 1 software still. So I am not all in on this being in like March, April, May release. So I'm still waiting, I think.
Right. And price wise, what do you think it's going to be?
Yeah, I think 400 makes sense.
And last question then, what do you think it's going to be called?
I have no.
Do you think they will? I'll change it then. Do you think it will be Switch 2, or do you think it will be?
I think that's the only thing I
else?
can really. Here's the thing: it's either Switch 2 or it's something that no one has thought of.
Yeah, because there's three possibilities, right? It's either just Switch 2, it's got nothing to do with the Switch name at all, or it's something like Super Switch, Switch Advance, Hyper Switch, some Switch adjective name. Like those are the three possibilities. So I guess it's which one you think it falls into.
I think Switch 2 is the safest one to predict at the moment.
Right. Slink, what about yourself? You gave $400 as your thoughts for the price.
Also, sorry for my mic arm. I think it made a really loud creaking noise.
We didn't hear it. So.
Yeah, I'm just apologizing to the stream because they would have.
Okay.
I think $400. I think it's probably going to be at the beginning of next year.
Rough.
I don't.
Like give or take.
March to May. March to May.
Okay.
And I think going with Switch 2 is the smartest idea. Because, like, people shorthand PlayStation all the time. When they release a new PlayStation number console, it's no big deal. It's the next system. Calling it anything but Switch 2 would be inviting the same kind of predicament that the Wii U went through. my mom bought a Wii U Just Dance game for her Wii and was really confused why it didn't work.
Yeah, the
Switch
Wii
2
U
is good. People shorthand the Sony PlayStation to PlayStation. Nintendo can now just be a line of Switches going forward.
You don't think people shorthand Nintendo to just Nintendo?
People will shorthand
I
Nintendo to Nintendo, but it could just be also shorthand to the Switch, and Switch 2 rolls off the tongue as well as something like the PS2, PS3.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to note with the naming, I'm also in Camp Switch 2, and the reason being is because people do shorthand Nintendo consoles as Nintendo, but the thing is that they did that 20 years ago and not anymore. Like the Switch is not like people called Nintendo systems the Nintendo because the NES was literally called the Nintendo Entertainment System. No one's going to be calling it like no one was going to shorthand call it the Entertainment System. So you just call it the Nintendo or the NES.
That's a good point.
And then that makes sense for Super Nintendo because if people are already using Nintendo as a shorthand, then you just affix a new word to it, Nintendo 64. But once you've made like a defined name for the system, then people refer to it as the name. No one's calling the Xbox the Microsoft. And no one's calling PlayStation the Sony.
Well, yeah, but I don't think they don't have Sony. Like the originals might have been the Sony PlayStation, but like everything from PS2 onwards didn't really use.
But that's
the
what I'm
Sony
saying.
name.
People just refer to it as the name and not the.
Like, even like officially, right? Like it's not called the
Yeah.
Sony PlayStation 5, is it?
Well, they
just
they
the
do
PlayStation
sometimes
5.
call it. They're like the Sony PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 5 home video game systems.
See,
But-
I don't see because like with the Nintendo, Nintendo's always like the Nintendo Switch family of
Yeah.
systems because it's referring to all three of them.
But yeah, my point is that I don't Switch plus another word. I think that works for like a Pro model or a Lite, but it doesn't work for a new system. Switch is already such like a hard defined like name, like you hear it and you know it. So I think they're just like it's very un-Nintendo, but I think they're just gonna just slap a number on it. They kind of did the same thing with the DS. Like they didn't call like the 3DS isn't like a successor number, but like that's more defined than if they called it like the Super DS or something. Like 3DS just rolls off the tongue better. And I think Switch 2 is just catchier than like Super Switch or Ultra Switch or something.
Yeah. And what do you think for price and release date?
I think it's also going to be $400. It's that like that's not even I don't even feel like it's much of a stretch given that like the hardware we know that's going to be in it. I don't know. I don't think they could make a $300 Switch 2 and it not be like what people don't want, you know? Like,
So what? Just out of curiosity, what was the Switch one in America?
it was 300 flat.
Right. Okay. Because I think because it was £250, but I think at least with current exchange rate that brings it to like $335.
Yeah.
But I do remember it being more expensive in PAL regions because fuck us, right? Brexit be
Yeah.
like. But yeah. So I was just curious about that because I'm trying to think of it from a pound to dollar perspective.
I mean, the prices of the other consoles basically went up because they're all pushing way more power too. Like the Series X and the PS5 should have gotten price drops by now, but they are still plenty powerful machines.
PS5 got a price increase. In
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
For some fucking reason.
but I mean, given that the tech in this thing is like on par with the Steam Deck, which is also $400, and then like it's got even more extra specific bits in it and everything, it's like under the hood, like the Joy-Cons are probably more technologically deep than like the controls on the deck. So yeah, $400. It's gonna be called Switch 2, and then I would just say mid 2025. I think everyone seems to be kind of dead set on April May right now. I feel like it could be pushed back to summer. I don't know if they would go the whole all the way to the holiday season. I guess they could. I've been bamboozled before as to when this thing will release. Nothing is set in stone, but it I think they would have done a general direct in September if they were not ready to just jump into it.
Yeah. So
I think they just would have gone ahead and done a regular, because that's what the partner showcase was. It was just a direct without the Zelda and Mario Party trailers that they dumped on Twitter like the next week anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I lean to yours as well, Colin. Your predictions. I think it will be $400 as well. Having done the price conversion, thinking about it, like the lowest it could potentially get is $360 or $350, something like that, and
yeah,
the highest could be $450. So 400 being in the middle. I don't see it getting up to $500 though. So
yeah, no, I don't think. That's like actual iPad territory.
Yeah, so I think $400 is right for the price, and I also am leaning more towards it being at beginning of summer. Like, I think it could be May the earliest, but I'm leaning more towards a June, July release date, maybe like early July. So like that June gaming period will be like 1 month before the Switch comes out, and it's just this massive blowout of all the launch games, and Nintendo are doing all these events building up to that, and it's all tied in across May and June. Like, I still think they can do the whole reveal now in October, do an actual presentation at the end of January like they did for the Switch.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to come out in 6 weeks after that in March. It can come out in June, July.
Yeah.
So, that's what I'm leaning towards. And in terms of the name, the Switch 2 name has grown on me more. Like, I was very anti-Switch 2 for a while.
It's very un-Nintendo, but it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, what the fuck could they call it that like non-gamers would be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So the thing because of my whole Wii U idea and the C button and all that, I kind of like the name Switch Connect as the or just Connect, like Nintendo Connect, and that's because if that's the gimmick. And I think that name rolls off the tongue quite nicely.
See, I think they won't. I just don't think they would change the name outright until they make a thing that is like.
It doesn't look anything like the Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the main issue.
It could still look like a Switch, but the thing about the Switch 2 is that everything we know about it so far is that it looks identically like the Switch, just larger.
Yeah.
Like it's borrowing the same design principles and philosophies and everything.
Yeah, that is the one thing that is the main thing that's leading me towards Switch 2. And I think like the 2 can also refer to the idea of having 2 screens and stuff like that. Like, I can see how the logo would look. So there's justification for in that regard for having it be 2 rather than it just being because it's the next one along.
Also, like they're just not going to use the word super in 2025.
Oh no, I don't think it's going to be called
That's like,
I like that name at the start from just a pure return to form. Like, oh, the Switch is Nintendo saving themselves after the Wii U. It's a return to the classic days. New CEO in chart, like on all this.
I mean, I guess I could be wrong. I just
like the next one.
I just don't see journalists at like PAX being like, "Is this coming to Super Switch?"
Yeah, I think like
it just sounds corny.
Thinking about it a bit more, it is quite corny. You're only really calling it Super Switch because of the association with Super Nintendo. And I think when the rumors were going about that it was going to have the Super Nintendo color buttons for the controls, which I mean it might still have, although I think that
would be sick. They should do that.
I mean, I feel like that's just an option thing, right? Like, you can have Joy-Cons you can get Joy-Cons now, I'm sure, that have the Super Nintendo style button colors. It's Like, I don't think it's going to be a standard like it was, not unless they were intentionally making it a Super Switch.
I feel like the best
Yeah.
argument for the Switch 2 name is that if they called it anything else, people would probably still just refer to it as Switch 2.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true. I mean,
Well, I mean, if they didn't have Switch in the name at all, then I think they would refer to it by the new name.
maybe, yeah,
So, like, if it was
exactly, yeah.
yeah. But yeah, if
It was the
like,
NX. Holy shit.
yeah. But if they called it like Switch Plus, Switch 2, Switch whatever, then people would still refer to it as like Switch 2, or just even
Yeah.
Switch. Again, after
The
like
new Switch?
enough-
Yeah.
the new Nintendo Switch. God, I hope it's not called that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So Switch 2, I'm now leaning towards it. If you had asked me this a few months ago, I would have been against it, but
Yeah.
now I'm a bit more onto it.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
need to jump out soon if we're not wrapping up.
Yes, no. This
Oh
is
yeah,
the-
yeah.
This is
Okay.
it. This is the end now. So
I had to mute my mic and take a call from my girlfriend. while we were talking.
No worries. Yeah, well, yeah, that's it. This was going to be the end of it. We've hit the
Great.
2-hour mark that these podcasts usually last. So, Tucker, why don't you let the good people know where they can find you?
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel where I talk a lot about Nintendo stuff called Backlog Banter. The link to that was so graciously included in the title of this stream, so you can just click on that; it'll take you straight there. We don't do the same kind of videos these guys do, which is good. We're not competing directly, but we do more general topics that are kind of strange, like are video games art and like just like history things, like what's the history of Mii's, and I don't know, just it's kind of weird. Also, I've been doing game dev interviews recently. I've got another one coming out next week, and we've also got next week. I think the Source Gaming audience, guys, listen to this. I think you all like this. We're doing a what if there was a Captain Rainbow 2, and we sort of spitball about what the different characters would be included and what their stories would be, and like also a little bit of history about Skip and about Nintendo and stuff. So I think you guys will really like that video, and that should be up in 2 or 3 days.
Nice. I'm looking forward to that then. Sounds
All
great.
right.
Cool. And well, everyone knows where to find the rest of us. So.
Yeah. Thank you very much to all of our lovely patrons. You can join our Patreon today, link in the description. It helps support us make content like this, and there are special perks like a Patreon exclusive Discord channel and Patreon exclusive content. Hope you enjoyed today's episode, and always remember to return to the source.
Goodbye.